Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 196 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where we are more elvish than we thought.
What do you mean, lighthearted, quick-worded, and soon over?
Speak for yourself.
Probably not over soon enough, honestly.
I hope not. Yeah.
Well, folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Sean Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the man of the West, who sleeps standing up, I'm told, Alan Sisto.
That's right, but not under a waterfall, because that would just be uncomfortable.
I couldn't fall asleep under a waterfall. I don't know how you would do it.
No, I really don't. But, we're not Ents, so there's that.
That's true.
Which is good, because otherwise these episodes would be about 18 hours long.
Yes, they would.
So, folks, today we are going to be talking about the fourth part of Treebeard. That's chapter 4 in book 3 of The Lord of the Rings. This is when Treebeard sings an elvish song about Ents, and we begin Entmoot.
Yay, but not when we finish Entmoot, of course.
No, of course not.
Well, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are working our way through J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium a few pages at a time.
We study the details, make connections to other writings, we talk about our favorite themes.
And as is probably obvious by now, we have a lot of fun along the way, so we're glad you joined us.
Yes, we are. And we hope you'll be glad you joined as well.
But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it is time for a segment we haven't had in a really long time. It's time to call together the Council.
Oh, yes, this is going to be good. Because today, the Council is going to be discussing the Ents and the Entwives, with a little extra attention paid to the latter, since there's so little about them.
Well, and frankly, I think the Entwives needed a little attention paid to them while they were married to the Ents. But...
Oh, that hurts. Well, Treebeard's looking at you sideways now.
Well, hey, they didn't leave for nothing.
That's true.
Well, not only is there very little attention paid to them in the text, won't say anything about Treebeard, but also because their loss is really a bit of a tragic mystery to readers.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Now, joining us in the council today, through their writings, of course, are some familiar Tolkien scholars like former PPP guests Verlin Flieger and Corey Olson, as well as some others you'll know like Paul Coker, Humphrey Carpenter, and more.
And thanks to our research assistants, Marilyn R. Pakila and Thomas Karat, for tracking these quotes down, too. We're going to start with the popularity of Ents. In an essay called The Green Knight, the Green Man, and Treebeard, in her book Green Sons and Fairy, Verlin Flieger points out that right after the publication of this second volume of The Lord of the Rings, people wrote to Tolkien seeking more information about the Ents. Flieger argues the reason is that so engaging is Treebeard as a character, and so attractive are the Ents as a concept.
I would agree with that 100%. I mean, Treebeard is a very engaging character. We've talked about this a little bit. He's so different from elves and men and dwarves. He's got such a radically different viewpoint. I mean, even from the elves, who are about as pro-tree as you can get until you meet the Ents.
Well, yeah.
But he's so different even from them, and he says it. And you come up with this character, and you can't help wanting to know more.
Yeah, it's true.
Not just Treebeard specifically, but the Ents in general, too. And we're finally going to meet some more of them tonight. They're just an intriguing race, and they're all very, very different from the children of Iluvatar, aren't they?
They are, and different from each other, which is, I think, one of the reasons that they're so interesting to us.
Yeah, different but similar, and that is such a profound and intriguing thing. Well,
it is.
How many times can we say the word intriguing here? I will say that part of the attraction that I think Flieger is talking about, I think it probably stems from the particular way that Treebeard represents nature and the forest. Flieger does talk at length about this. She observes that Treebeard is basically the same as the Green Knight in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And the Green Knight, in turn, is basically the same as the Green Man, who is an ancient pagan symbol. And Flieger says that this symbolism is an ancient motif in a new text, still retaining its mystery, like the Green Knight in the Christian poem, or the character of Treebeard in a modern fantasy. Each is a message from an older world. Whatever his epithet, call him the Green Man, the Green Knight, or Treebeard, he is the archetype of the green world, and he speaks for the spirit of the wild and uncultivated life.
The wild and uncultivated life. That really seems to be the sticking point between the Ents and the Entwives, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Entwives, with their preference for well-tended gardens and everything being all in proper order, they're hardly representative of that spirit of the wild and uncultivated life.
Kind of the opposite of it, really.
Exactly, yeah. Now, if, as Flieger suggests, Treebeard is this ancient motif in a new text, Well, the Entwives don't really fit that motif very well, and so their absence is arguably necessary in order to really showcase the role that Treebeard is meant to play. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Ents and Entwives are really at cross purposes. They have really diametrically opposed attitude towards nature. Now, it's not really obvious when you first encounter them. They kind of seem like, oh, well, they're both representative of nature. But if you think about it, they really are two opposing sides, kind of like you were saying, that wild and uncultivated life versus everything being in its proper order.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say even going a step further than that, think back to that part where Treebeard talks about men coming and learning agriculture from the Entwives. We talked about this last time. And the idea that men honored the Entwives and so forth. If you think about it, the Entwives are basically, in a way, helping a group of people, teaching a group of people who are, to an extent, natural enemies of the Ents.
That's a good point.
I mean, men are not orcs, obviously.
No, most of them aren't, right.
Most of them aren't. Some of them can be quite orcish, but even the best men, there's still a tension between men and the forest, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like and this kind of goes all the way back to like chapter 2 of Aule and Yavanda, and the idea that, look, people are going to misuse their natural resources sometimes.
Or even just use them, which from the tree's perspective might still not be okay.
And that's a really good point, yeah. I mean, we see Treebeard get especially angry when they waste, right? When orcs cut down trees and they don't even use them. That really makes the Ents mad. But you're right. I think even just using them would make the Ents quite unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you go back to the Old Forest and Old Man Willow.
Oh, yeah.
I think we talked about this a little bit in our P5 last week, right?
Yeah.
There's tension between even the nature-loving hobbits and the Old Forest that's right on their doorstep.
That's right. I mean, remember, they end up in the forest finding that glade. Well, that glade was there because they burn the trees or they started a fire and then the trees retreated or something along those lines? Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
There was some tension there.
Absolutely. And Flieger actually points out that despite Tolkien's love of trees, she says, it may come as something of a shock to be reminded that the first real villain to be met with in The Lord of the Rings is a tree. And that's Old Man Willow. Right. And again, as we talked about in our P5 last week, he is a significant villain. Absolutely.
He absolutely is. So Flieger goes on to look at Paul Coker's Master of Middle-earth. And in that, Coker says that Old Man Willow's hostility is, quote, natural hatred for destructive mankind. Well, this has some big ramifications. As Flieger continues, this would naturally include all the hobbits, the good ones as well as the bad ones, all our favorite characters. And then she observes this about the tension. Here is the sticking point. Wild nature and human community, arguably one might include the more civilized Entwives in that, do not coexist easily. Perhaps in an ideal world they should, but in the real world they simply don't. And in Tolkien's fiction, this sticking point leads to an unreconcilable contradiction that puts his much-loved Shire folk in this one respect on a par with his orcs, and in the same respect makes the villainous Old Man Willow and his forest no more villainous than Treebeard and his Ents. Now, sure, Treebeard and Old Man Willow are two very different sides of the nature coin, just as hobbits and orcs are two sides of the civilization coin. But Flieger concludes, civilization and nature are at undeclared war with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you did a really good job in calling out how the Entwives really do represent that civilization in a way, because they are a bit of civilization.
Working with men, teaching them agriculture. Yeah.
They are agriculture. They are not the wild. They are planting and harvesting and all that.
Yeah. Tamed nature. Yeah.
Right. And when you think of it that way, with the Ents representing nature and Entwives representing at least a bit of civilization, there's a mini war between Ents and Entwives as well. I mean, it's really no wonder they didn't stay together. It's very sad, but they just were kind of incompatible. Now, it wouldn't be the council if Verlin Flieger's was the only opinion we looked at here.
No, or Paul Coker's for that matter, yeah.
Right. So Corey Olsen has some things to say in an essay published in Tolkien Studies, Volume 5. This is called The Myth of the Ent and the Entwife. And Corey points out another potential reason for the split. He says, if the Entwife's is an active life, the Ents is a contemplative one. There is something tragic in the separation and isolation of such perfectly complementary perspectives. Rather than calling its readers to choose a side between the Ent and the Entwife, the song, which we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes, folks, I promise, invites us to see the separate beauty and value of each perspective, and to recognize the pathos in their self-absorption and rivalry. He goes on to say the failure of both Ent and Entwife to show the Entish humility that would allow them to get inside each other's perspectives and thus come together to form that perfect whole superimposes upon this encomium a caution against losing perspective and giving in to pride and self-absorption, even when the source of pride and the object of absorption is itself a good and beautiful thing.
Wow.
I want to linger on that a moment. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. There's bad guys on both sides, aren't there? Both the
There really
Ent
are.
and the Entwife are proud. They're stuck in
Mhm.
their ways. They refuse to give an inch, don't they? Both of them.
That is correct, yeah. And like Olson says, they do seem to have this inability to understand one another's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I love what he says here about pride, right? You know, we often think about pride as a negative thing, and it is a negative thing. But here, as he points out, the source of pride and the object of their absorption, that is, what they're absorbed in, whether it be the wild or whether it be agriculture,
Sure, yeah.
they're both good and beautiful things.
Yeah, yeah.
This isn't Saruman being proud in his, mechanics, in his creation of these terrible things. These are good things that they're proud of, and rightfully so in many ways. But this isn't going to be the first time or the last that pride, even in a good thing, leads to loss and separation in Tolkien.
No, in fact, I'm actually reminded a little bit of Feanor here.
Yeah, a
Because
little bit.
you think of Feanor's pride in the Silmarils. I mean,
It's a beautiful
you
thing.
could argue the Silmarils are not a wholly good thing, but they are certainly beautiful, and there's certainly
They
a lot
are.
of good about them.
Absolutely.
The pride that he has in those rather beautiful things is
Yeah.
absolutely ugly,
Yeah, it is.
and it does lead to loss and separation, doesn't it?
Boy, it really does. And yeah, we see that here. I mean, Olson goes on to argue that the destined path of the Ent and the Entwife to lose everything before possibly reuniting is, well, really their own fault. He goes on to say, the Ent and the Entwife have allowed their love for their lands, itself a good thing, to skew their priorities. They have become so entrenched in their own ways of thinking that they have forgotten their dependence on each other and their shared destiny. They have devoted themselves so completely to that which they love in Middle-earth that they will not turn toward the higher and greater world for which they are destined. Therefore, it is only through grief and loss that they can find the road that leads them together to final peace and rest through the bitter rain.
Huh.
Wow.
That makes me really sad.
It does. There really is no joy in this story.
No, there's not.
Even if the Entwives, we've talked about this before, if the Entwives were somehow miraculously still alive, if they had not been destroyed by Sauron, finding them isn't going to be good.
No,
There would
they've
be no
just
joy.
grown apart too much.
Yeah.
Well, other scholars have had some interesting perspectives that we also want to talk about here.
Yeah.
Ruth Noel, in her book The Mythology of Middle-earth, points out that the separation of the Ents and Entwives, each loving a particular type of land, recalls that of the Scandinavian god Njord, that was a sea god, from his wife Skadi, who was the daughter of a mountain giant. Noel says, like the Ents and Entwives, they separated and went to live in their favorite lands. Now, a little bit of background here. After marrying, Njord and Skadi each spent 9 nights in the home of the other. So
Right.
first her place in the high mountains and then his place on the beach, before both of them said, you know what, this just isn't going to work.
That's about
So-
right. Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing in the Ents and Entwives' favor. I think they lasted more than 18 days.
One would expect. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably took them 18 days to say their wedding vows.
Upon consideration, do.
Yep.
Oh man. Now I'm picturing an Ent version of the wedding in Princess Bride.
Oh, man.
Marriage is what brings us together today. Sorry.
That's
That
amazing.
could get really funny, but it could also take about an hour. So
It could, yeah. Let's reel
Well,
it in.
And finally, Jane Chance had something to say, though, that doesn't put it on both parties. In Tolkien and the Other, an essay in Tolkien's Modern Middle Ages, she argues that the Ents have lost the Entwives because they are so self-absorbed. That is, the Ents are interested in traveling and seeking out new trees, whereas the Entwives like cultivating their gardens in one place. The Ents' lack of sensitivity to the other has resulted in their mutual loss of one another through the Entwives' disappearance. How ironic, Jane says, that Treebeard's pushiness and insistence have led him to the necessity of his singing both the parts, a necessity that might have educated him about their differences.
Ouch.
I know. Sting. I concede. I'm not sure I would conclude that the pushiness and insistence was quite as one-sided, but clearly Treebeard and the Ents were self-absorbed, so that is fair. Just that
Sure.
maybe the Entwives were too.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if we believe Treebeard's description of them.
Yeah.
Of course, his description is biased to some degree.
I'm
but
sure it is, yeah.
I really do think that these are just two completely incompatible plants, and they just, yeah, I think it was on both sides. But hey, look, I
Yep.
do still wish we could hear the Entwives version of the story.
I do too. And you know what? I have to say, in fairness for them, it's a good thing that they just sort of grew apart and separated without lawyers being involved, because the hourly rate for meetings and conversations would be through the roof.
Now, I have to wonder if Ents would hire non-Ent lawyers or if they would hire Ent lawyers.
Oh,
because
good heavens, an Ent
that
lawyer.
would be even worse.
Oh, that's terrifying. That's just terrifying.
Ladies,
No.
gentlemen,
Oh,
the jury.
Oh man, if they signed a prenuptial agreement, it would have to be books long. It wouldn't be paragraphs, it'd be books. All right.
Well, they wouldn't sign a prenuptial agreement because where would they get the paper?
Oh, good point.
You made the prenup out of my mother-in-law. Sorry.
Oh man, that's funny stuff.
That's terrible.
That is terrible. Yeah. Folks, we may not be any nearer to discovering the whereabouts or the fate of the Entwives, but we sure did enjoy this appearance of the council. But now it is time to listen in to Treebeard as he sings one of the Ents' top 40 hits of all time. And Sean,
And it's a long one.
it is a long one, and I'm going to have you start.
All right. We're going to go right into some Treebeard dialogue.
Yes, we will.
There was an elvish song that spoke of this, or at least so I understand it. It used to be sung up and down the great river. It was never an Entish song, mark you. It would have been a very long song in Entish, but we know it by heart and hum it now and again. This is how it runs in your tongue.
And we'll start with the Ent.
When spring unfolds the beechen leaf, and sap is in the bough, when light is on the wildwood stream, and wind is on the brow, when stride is long, and breath is deep, and keen the mountain air, come back to me, and say my land is fair.
And the response of the Entwife.
When spring is come to garth and field, and corn is in the blade, when blossom like a shining snow is on the orchard laid, when shower and sun upon the earth with fragrance fill the air, I'll linger here and will not come, because my land is fair.
And as we often do, we have a special guest reading the last little bit.
When winter comes, the winter wild that hill and wood shall slay, when trees shall fall and starless night devour the sunless day, when wind is in the deadly east, then in the bitter rain I'll look for thee and call to thee, I'll come to thee again. The Entwife. When winter comes and singing ends, when darkness falls at last, when broken is the barren bough and light and labour past, I'll look for thee and wait for thee, until we meet again. Together we will take the road beneath the bitter rain. Both. Together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest.
Oh, man, that is such a...
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
It really
It's
is.
lovely but melancholy. It's this just amazing back and forth that really reveals the depth of the separation between
The
them, doesn't it?
divide between them. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just there's, the Ent is making these entreaties, and the Entwife is just,
Yeah.
no,
No,
no, I'm not going to.
I like it here better.
Yeah, it's melancholy not only given the call and response, but just the progression of the seasons, right?
Yes. Yeah. Time is continuing. Time is ticking.
Yeah.
And they're not any closer.
Right.
No.
Right. And we see it start in the spring
Mhm.
with the Ent saying, "Come back to me and say my land is fair." To which the Entwife replies, "No."
Right. And then we get the same pattern. They move to summer, come back to me and say, my land is best. No.
No.
No. Yeah.
And then to winter with, "I'll look and call. I'll come to you. Then I'll look and wait and we'll leave."
My heart is just heavy reading this.
Yeah.
There's one thing that jumped out at me just on this reading, not something that I came across during our research. And it's that at least in both spring and summer, the Ent is saying, come back to me. The Entwife says no. But in neither of those cases does the Entwife says, no, but you know what? You're welcome to come out here. She never invites the Ents to leave what they're doing. Now, maybe it's because they know better, but there's a real sorrow there. Like, not only am I not coming back, I'm not even inviting you to come and be with us.
I think the Entwifes left because they weren't interested in the Ents anymore.
I think you might be right.
That is incredibly depressing. But another way of thinking about that is consider the fact that the Entwives didn't miss the Ents as much as the Ents missed them.
Yeah, that's clearly true.
Oh, that's painful to think about.
That
but
is
it's
unrequited love. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. And it's just more proof of the incompatibility of the two. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at some of the imagery in the poem, every verse by the Ent is celebrating trees and green growth. And the Entwife just has no interest in that. Like we were talking about a moment ago with the council segment, she prefers a well-tended garden, a bountiful harvest. She's all about ordering things and growing things for a purpose as opposed to just sort of growth for its own sake.
Right. And there's something else that we discussed in our P5 to the last episode earlier in this one, that nature versus agriculture question again. They really do seem more opposed, more antithetical than we might have originally thought on first reading, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because at first you're thinking, oh yeah, they're just two sides of nature. But no, they're two totally different views on the purpose of nature, I think.
Yeah. Irreconcilable, no doubt.
Irreconcilable, absolutely. And yet, as we talked about with that quote from Coriolson that we brought into the council, the poem doesn't really take sides. It actually does invite us to appreciate both perspectives, and it kind of celebrates the beauty of both sides of that.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder if that might be because it's an Elvish song. If the Ents had written it.
Oh, yeah. Treebeard's version of this song would be just a little more strident, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I think we got time for a quick sidebar on the poetry itself, and I want to give a hat tip to our research assistant, Julia Matthews, for her help on this.
Yeah.
So the Song of the Ent and the Entwife is a ballad, which is a type of narrative poetry, usually set to music. It actually dates back to the Middle Ages, and it's pretty common in English verse.
Right.
So this particular ballad is made up of what are called 14ers. What that means is that each line consists of 14 syllables that are made up of 7 iambic feet. So an iambic foot is an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable.
Okay.
And these are actually arranged into almost half lines where you've got basically 4 of those feet. So 4 unstressed stress repetitions with usually a quick break and then 3 more. So when spring unfolds the beech and leaf, and then there's a comma, and sap is in the bough. So you've got 4 feet, comma, 3 feet. And there's not always a comma, but there's usually some sort of a natural break there.
Yeah, natural pause, right. If you look at the poem as a whole, you'll also see that it's broken into quatrains. Each quatrain consists of 4 sets of these 14ers.
Right.
And each of the quatrains has an AABB rhyme scheme. Bow, brow, air, fair, for example.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot more intricacy, a lot more detail to this than I think you might pick up at first glance. But content-wise, it seems like the Ents are saying, when there's nothing more to see, I'll come see you. And the Entwives are saying, when there's nothing more to be done, I'll come be with you.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
That makes me think of Coriolson's observation that the Ents are contemplative and the Entwives are active, right?
Action-oriented, very much so, yeah.
The Entwives have something to do when there's nothing more to be done, as opposed to the Ents who just want to sort of take it all in.
Right.
Although, sadly, the last 2 verses make it really clear that that day is only going to come when essentially an apocalyptic winter arrives.
Yeah. The end of all things will,
Yeah. And then, maybe we'll find a land where we can both rest. Oh,
that is just,
I mean, singing has to end and our work has to be past. Trees have to fall. The night devours the day, dogs and cats living together. It's going to take extreme circumstances to bring these two back together. And at the risk of repeating ourselves, man, that's just kind of a bummer.
It really is, especially for the Ents, because I think, like you observed, they seem to miss the Entwives a lot more than the Entwives missed them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and pick up shortly after that. Treebeard makes his little spiel about how, this is a short song, of course, because it's Elvish. And yes, our version of it would be more biasy pretty much in bits. And then he says this.
But now I'm going to stand up and take a little sleep. Where will you stand?
We usually lie down to sleep, said Mary. We shall be all right where we are.
Lie down to sleep,
said Treebeard.
Why, of course you do. I was forgetting. Singing that song put me in mind of old times. Almost thought that I was talking to young Entings, I did. Well, you can lie on the bed. I'm going to stand in the rain. Good night.
Mary and Pippin climbed onto the bed and curled up in the soft grass and fern. It was fresh and sweet-scented and warm. The lights died down and the glow of the trees faded, but outside, under the arch, they could see old Treebeard standing motionless, with his arms raised above his head. The bright stars peered out of the sky and lit the falling water as it spilled onto his fingers and head, and dripped in hundreds of silver drops onto his feet. Listening to the tinkling of the drops, the hobbits fell asleep. Wow, that is a scene.
That is a great, great scene. Let's go back to the beginning of it and talk about Treebeard standing up to sleep.
Yeah.
He's surprised that other creatures don't stand up to sleep.
I'm not sure he's surprised that other creatures don't. I think he's surprised that they're not young Entings.
That these are not young Entings.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
No, that's true. I love the idea that Ents would think of lying down to sleep as something alien.
Right, as strange and abnormal, because trees, of course, don't do that.
Right, a tree's natural position at rest,
because
under normal circumstances, trees are never anything but at rest. Is standing up.
Yeah, pretty much a tree that's horizontal is usually dead.
Dead, exactly. I'll lie down when I'm dead is an old Entish saying, I'm sure.
Yes.
So yeah, lying down to sleep, that's got to be kind of creepy. But
that is, yeah.
But yeah, you called it. I mean, his comment that he thought he was talking to young Entings, that's really cool. And it strikes me as very high praise from Treebeard.
Oh, it is. Yeah, absolutely. I the same thing. Part of it's his own thinking, right? I mean, he's in the frame of
just
mind.
A bit scatterbrained, maybe.
He's been singing this song and it brings back all the old times and all those old memories. And so he's thinking about the young Entings, and he's probably thinking about making some young Entings. And, he's
probably
not going to have that happen anymore.
He will have need of wood.
He will not, actually, but
that's true. He won't.
Yeah. It made me think, though, this whole thing about sleeping standing up. I remember, here's a Bab 5 reference. We haven't made those in a while. Remember that the Minbari sleep on that sort of 45-degree angled sofa sort of thing?
Yeah. That
was so weird. They're virtually sleeping standing up.
Yeah, that's true. And it was really hard, too, wasn't it?
It was.
There's like a little pillow, maybe? Was there like a
tiny
little head pillow? Yeah.
Yeah, that was about it. And then something to put your feet on, I think, because otherwise you just slide right down.
You just slide right off.
Yeah. Oh, man, I missed that show.
I do, too. It's almost time for a rewatch.
I think it is, yeah. Here's a silly question for you, though. If you sleep standing up, why do you have a bed? I mean, I don't think we're going to get an answer to that, but...
That is a good question.
I don't know. You don't take your naps there? Is it just a sofa, but we're calling it a bed?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It does say the hobbits are going to sleep on the bed, so it must be comfortable enough to sleep on.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds really comfy.
Yeah, and even Treebeard calls it a bed. You can lie on the bed. Why would you have a bed if you sleep standing up? I don't know.
Why would you have a word for bed if you sleep standing
I
up?
know. I don't have a word for that 45-degree horizontal thing that the Minbari sleep on, because I don't sleep that way. Yeah.
Right.
Weird.
I don't know.
Anyway.
It is very interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe they do other things on the bed. I don't know.
Not anymore.
Right, exactly. Maybe they used to use the bed.
Yeah, that's true. Could be.
In which case, I don't think I want to hear the Entish word.
No, I don't want to know. I don't want to hear. No, you're right, because
that word will tell a story.
All the things that happened with it. So no, let's just leave that there.
Yep.
I mean, if the hill is that place where I stand in the morning in the sun,
right,
and look out and see all the things, and I don't want to know.
That is that place where never mind. I don't want to hear it. No.
No. La la la. I'm not listening.
Oh, but that one time. Never mind.
No. Stop.
All
right. There's no singing here.
But it does sound like a very comfortable bed. Fresh,
doesn't it? Oh,
sweet scented, warm.
Yeah, nice. Just a comfy, cozy place, and yeah, just really nice. And of course, this gorgeous shot of Treebeard. He's sort of backlit with the stars coming out of the sky and lighting up the rain. Oh, yeah, a beautiful, beautiful image.
You can just
arms
see him
up,
shaking his tree head slowly, and the water just just kind of, I don't know. Never mind.
Is this an ad for some sort of like Entish shampoo?
Cologne, yeah.
Yeah, some sort of artsy ad where like you have no idea what they're advertising, but it's in black and white, so it must be a cologne.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But no, now here's something interesting. We get a mention of the stars here, don't we?
Yes.
See, the bright stars come out, and the starlight makes the water sparkle like silver.
Yes.
Normally, whenever I see the stars come out, I always think of elves, but here's one time when I don't do that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's nothing here that makes me think of elves.
No.
So I guess maybe this is the exception that proves the rule.
Possibly.
But still, an utterly Entish scene here.
Very Entish.
Lighting the falling water as it spills down, drips, and the dying glow of the light from the trees.
Mm-hmm. The glow of the trees faded. That is a beautiful moment, no doubt about it.
Yep.
Well, before we hit the road to Entmoot, we wanted to remind you to visit our website, theprancingponypodcast.com.
Oh, yeah. All the good stuff is there. Show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, as well as our online storefront where you can get PPP shirts, mugs, stickers, and more.
And one of the best resources we have is our library page. After all, we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we want to make sure you can get your hands on any of the books that we mention here.
Yeah, we may talk about a lot of Tolkien-related stuff on the podcast, but really, Alan and I are fans of Tolkien's books and books about Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have the library page with links to every book we've mentioned on the show.
Now, we make a few pennies from the purchases you make from those links, so thank you for your support.
Yes, we do, and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we are a book-based podcast, we have talked about the movies from time to time, even though our opinions have differed a few times.
A little bit. But I think we both agree that what Howard Shore did with the music for the films was essential for bringing the world of Middle-earth to life.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you love the music of the Lord of the Rings films as much as we do, you really should take a listen to the Music of Middle-earth podcast.
Absolutely. Jordan Rennells, friend of the PPP and our sound editor, is exploring every theme Howard Shore put together for the films, one by one. And he just started a whole new revamped season 2 of his podcast.
And he's getting into the themes for Gollum about now, and we'll soon be exploring the Elven and Dwarvish themes as well. So if you're interested in learning more about how these themes are built and how they help evoke Tolkien's work, check out the Music of Middle-earth podcast on your favorite podcast app. All right. Well, Sean, I'm going to go ahead and have you pick up right after that with this charming line, hoo-ho.
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 Hoo-ho, hoo-ho. It's off to work we go.
Almost sounds like something the Who's down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would say hoo-ho.
It does, yeah. Hoo-ho. Indeed.
Hoo-ho. Good morning, Merry and Pippin.
He boomed when he saw them.
You sleep long. I have been many 100 strides already today. Now we will have a drink and go to Entmoot.
He poured them out 2 full bowls from a stone jar, but from a different jar. The taste was not the same as it had been the night before. It was earthier and richer, more sustaining and food-like, so to speak. While the hobbits drank, sitting on the edge of the bed and nibbling small pieces of elf cake, more because they felt that eating was a necessary part of breakfast than because they felt hungry, Treebeard stood, humming in Entish or Elvish or some strange tongue, and looking up at the sky. "Where is Entmoot?" Pippin ventured to ask.
Oh, eh? Entmoot?
Said Treebeard, turning round.
It is not a place. It is a gathering of Ents, which does not often happen nowadays. But I have managed to make a fair number promise to come. We shall meet in the place where we have always met. Durndingle, men call it. It is a way south from here. We must be there before noon.
Before long they set off. Treebeard carried the hobbits in his arms as on the previous day. At the entrance to the court he turned to the right, stepped over the stream, and strode away southwards along the feet of great tumbled slopes where trees were scanty. Above these the hobbits saw thickets of birch and rowan, and beyond them dark climbing pine woods. Soon Treebeard turned a little away from the hills and plunged into deep groves where the trees were larger, taller, and thicker than any that the hobbits had ever seen before. For a while they felt faintly the sense of stifling which they had noticed when they first ventured into Fangorn, but it soon passed.
Which is a good thing. That's a pretty intense feeling.
You don't want to feel stifling in these giant trees, bigger than you've ever seen before.
While you're being held in the arms
While you're
of
being
a giant
carried
tree.
by the biggest walking tree you've ever seen.
That's exactly the only walking tree you've ever seen.
Which makes it the biggest, obviously. Yeah.
Well, of course. So going back to the beginning of your passage, Merry and Pippin wake up to the cool sun and the east wind. I want to point out a little calendar for you. This is now the 30th of February. I know it's a day that doesn't exist in our calendar. Deal with it. This is the day when Aragorn meets Éomer. So that's what's
right.
happening in that other storyline. Yeah.
That's right.
Feels like that was a long time ago, doesn't it?
It does. I know.
Yeah.
But mostly because we've been reading Ent dialogue for weeks and weeks.
Exactly.
But when they wake up, they don't see any sign of Treebeard. He actually arrives during their morning bath in the basin.
Right, right.
Teases them a little bit for sleeping in, which I love.
I know. It's a Hobbit thing.
Right. Of course they're going to sleep late. But then he tells them, look, we've got plans today. We're going to go to Entmoot.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Right, which we'll get to in a second. And then he pours out 2 bowls of Ent draft like before. But, like we mentioned the last time when we talked about the Ent draft, this has a different taste. This is more earthy. It's more food-like. It's more sustaining. Really interesting.
The same but different. Yeah, there's obviously they have different kinds. They have one that's more refreshing, and they have one that's more nourishing.
Yeah, one's like an energy drink, one's like a protein shake.
Yeah. Well, and we see how well that works out, right? Because obviously hobbits don't like protein shakes because they have to eat some solid food, right?
Yeah.
They have to eat some lembas, but only because chewing seemed necessary. It's like
chewing. Yeah.
No matter how nourishing this Ent draft is, it just doesn't feel like a meal unless there's something solid, which I get, actually. I mean,
yeah.
Every once in a while, I can enjoy a nutrition shake, but I can understand why the hobbits feel that way.
I know. I still I crave a little food. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So while they're having their almost liquid breakfast, Pippin asks, where's this Entmoot place?
Right. But Treebeard responds, it's not a place. It's a gathering. It's not something that happens very often. It's very rare, but we're going to get a lot of them there. And we're going to be meeting in this place called Durndingle, which we'll talk about in a little bit, by the way. A little word nerdery on that soon.
First, let's do a little word nerdery on moot.
Yeah.
Since, we've only used the word hundreds of times on this podcast.
That is true. We have, haven't we?
It may be a rare word for hobbits, but it's not exactly a rare word for Tolkien fans.
No.
But it's worth doing a little word nerdery on it. The Oxford English Dictionary says moot is a meeting, an assembly of people, especially one for judicial or legislative purposes, chiefly associated with organs of national and local administration from the Anglo-Saxon to the early modern period. That certainly tracks with Tolkien, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, if you feel like there's a similarity between the word moot and the word meet, you're absolutely right. The words are related. And in fact, the word moot, as in a meeting, is also related to the modern sense of moot as an adjective, as in a moot point.
Oh,
And the idea here is that, a moot point was originally a point that was open to argument or debate.
that's weird. I'm thinking of it more in the legal sense of a point no longer relevant, not being worth discussing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if you look at the Oxford English Dictionary, which I actually happen to have in front of me here, it did kind of enter.
Of course you do.
Of course. Got to be ready.
Do you have Parma Eldelamber on number 17?
I don't. But, give me a reason. I might just get it ready.
I bet you could. All right, go ahead.
But no, it did kind of pass through that legal sense, because if you look at the OED, it says it was originally the idea of a case or issue proposed for discussion at a moot, at a meeting. But then later it acquired this connotation of something that was open to argument or debatable. And then it became uncertain or doubtful.
Oh.
Or unable to be firmly resolved. So I think it seems like it sort of had this sense shift where it went from something that is open to argument and something to be debated to something that's not worth debating. Because
it maybe isn't relevant anymore. Or
exactly.
Because in the legal term, in the legal sense, a court will not take a case if it is moot, just like they won't take it if it's not yet ripe, right? If the controversy hasn't, it's not worth talking about because that thing hasn't happened yet.
Gotcha.
It also can be, well, it's not worth talking about because that thing's already happened.
So in a legal sense, a moot case is one that can't be resolved? Is that?
It would be, it's no longer relevant to litigate it.
Got it. Yeah.
Let's say you're suing I'm trying to come up with an example, but I can't come up with one. So just leave it be.
But I think in the sense of a moot point, as we use that in just everyday speech,
right?
A moot point is one that's just not worth talking about because it's irrelevant.
And yet that's not actually the only meaning of the word, because it actually is open for debate.
Right.
Is a moot point. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
Well, we'll also do a little word nerdery on Durndingle while we're at it. In Tolkien's nomenclature, he says that Durndingle is said by Treebeard to be what men called the meeting place of the Ents. Well, that tells us the name is in Westron, or the common speech. Tolkien then continues, but the common speech name must be supposed to have been given a long time ago, when in Gondor more was known or remembered about the Ents.
That's the thing, because what reason would men have for referring to the meeting place?
Why would there be a word for the place those Ents meet?
Right, yeah, but that does make sense. Yeah. Well, Tolkien also adds in the nomenclature that dingle is still known, meaning a deep, tree-shadowed dell. But Durn, secret or hidden, is long obsolete. But we are going to come upon another use of that Durn in a couple of seasons with Durnhelm.
Ah, yes, we will. I knew that was where you were going.
Of course. I'm always going to find a way to refer to Durnhelm when I can.
Absolutely. So then they head south from Wellinghall. So they're not going out on the same way they came in. And then they start passing through these various, forested areas. They see various trees, birch and rowan and then pine woods. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I may not have brought out Parma Eldelamber in my research for this episode, but I did bring out Flora of Middle-earth.
Of course.
So I've got a little bit of plant nerdery on two of the trees that are mentioned here.
All right.
I want to talk about birches and rowans. So birches, according to Judd and Judd, the authors of Flora of Middle-earth, are widely distributed in Middle-earth and frequently referenced in Tolkien's writings. Now, they tend to have these beautiful, smooth, white bark trunks, which the Judds suggest is often symbolic of, get this, because it's super cool, hope for the renewal and purification of Middle-earth. So some examples they bring up. In Appendix A's Tale of Aragorn and Arwen, Aragorn first sees Arwen among birch trees. And of course, think about how their love renewed and purified Middle-earth in a way.
True.
Also, Eärendil's ship Vingalot was made of silvery white birch timbers. And of course, that story is all about hope for renewal and purification.
Boy, it sure is, yeah.
So I thought that was super cool about birches. I also want to bring up rowans because according to Judd and Judd, those are consistently viewed positively in European folklore. They're often considered magical or protective against witchcraft, which we've talked about before.
And then they head into the deep groves where the trees are larger, taller, and thicker than any they'd seen. Now, let's put that in perspective.
Any they'd ever seen.
Yeah. They'd been to Lothlorien, folks. They'd seen the Malorns. These must be huge. I'm thinking something
huge.
analogous to the giant sequoias, for instance. I mean, just massive, where you could literally carve a tunnel through them and drive cars. I mean, just massive trees. Not that you should, mind you.
Not unless you want the Ents to get angry.
Treebeard will be very upset about that.
Yeah,
I mean, can you imagine taking him to that place where the road goes underneath the tree?
He would not be happy at all.
No, he would be very upset.
So as they're going through these deep groves, Treebeard starts talking to himself. At least he seems like he's talking to himself.
That's what it looks like, right? Yeah, you think he is.
But then the hobbits think they hear answers from around them. So it sounds like he's actually signaling to the other trees and Ents.
Maybe he is. Maybe he is. And then they get to where they're going, and that's where I'm going to pick up.
Okay.
They had been going for a long while. Pippin had tried to keep count of the Ent strides, but had failed, getting lost at about 3,000, when Treebeard began to slacken his pace. Suddenly he stopped, put the hobbits down, and raised his curled hands to his mouth so that they made a hollow tube. Then he blew or called through them. A great whoom, hum rang out like a deep-throated horn in the woods and seemed to echo from the trees. Far off there came from several directions a similar whoom, hum, whoom. It was not an echo, but an answer. Treebeard now perched Merry and Pippin on his shoulders and strode on again, every now and then sending out another horn call, and each time the answers came louder and nearer. In this way they came at last to what looked like an impenetrable wall of dark evergreen trees, trees of a kind that the hobbits had never seen before. They branched out right from the roots and were densely clad in dark, glossy leaves like thornless holly, and they bore many stiff, upright flower spikes with large, shining, olive-colored buds. Turning to the left and skirting this huge hedge, Treebeard came in a few strides to a narrow entrance. Through it, a worn path passed and dived suddenly down a long, steep slope. The hobbits saw that they were descending into a great dingle, almost as round as a bowl, very wide and deep, crowned at the rim with the high, dark evergreen hedge. It was smooth and grass-clad inside, and there were no trees except 3 very tall and beautiful silver birches that stood at the bottom of the bowl.
All right.
Boy, that is really vivid description. I'm able to see this in my head quite clearly.
I'm able to see and hear, and I want to talk about some of this in a bit. First of all, let's talk about how far they go. I mean, Pippin lost count at 3,000 strides, but
right.
I mean, let's just for some perspective, this isn't anything like the 70,000 Ent strides that Treebeard walked to that hill when he first met them, right?
Right, right.
That was around 53 miles, I believe. This couldn't have been anything near that far. Even if Pippin lost count halfway through, let's say it was a little bit more than double that, 7,000 strides, we're still looking at a little over 5 miles traveled here.
Okay, so it's a much shorter distance than before.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because they slept in, they took a bath, they had breakfast, well, liquid breakfast, and they still had to be here by noon. So they couldn't have taken very long.
Couldn't have gone that far, yeah.
Right, right. But then we get that call, right? The whom, hum, and then the response. And it's not an echo because it has an extra sound to it. You can tell this is a different sound. This is somebody else making a sound. Really interesting stuff.
An extra whom, yep.
An extra whom. I also note that the first time he did it, but they don't mention it after that, is that he had to put the hobbits down to do this and sort of, bringing his hands together to make that sort of, trumpet blast, whoom,
yeah.
Or whoom.
And I love that because when I'm thinking about the idea of him making a figurative horn with his hands, I'm imagining like the sound of wooden horns that I've heard.
Yeah.
Like, and you know which one I'm thinking of? You remember the Ricola cough drop commercials?
Ricola.
Of course you do. How could you not? How could you not remember those commercials? Remember those? The Alp horn. I think they're called an Alp horn or an Alpenhorn.
Yeah.
And that is a long wooden horn.
Yeah, the bottom of it like on the ground when the guy's playing it. It's huge.
Yeah. So I'm actually imagining something like that. I don't know if I'm right to imagine something like that. But
I think that's the sound. I bet you're right.
I think so. And interestingly, I did a little research into this because I was thinking about it when I read this. Those horns, the Alp horns, were supposedly used by shepherds to send signals to each other.
From very long distances away, yeah.
Yeah. So that's super cool. And that's kind of the sound I'm hearing as he's making this noise.
I think that's not too far off. I really do.
Yeah. But yeah, so he continues on. He repeats the call. He's doing this over and over as he goes through. And
Right. And each time he does, the answers are coming closer and they're louder.
Yeah.
Right up until the point that they reach that wall of dark evergreen trees. These are interesting. It's not clear what they are. I mean, the text just says that they're trees of a kind the hobbits had never seen before. I dug into it a little bit, but I didn't find much. But did you?
I actually did in Flora of Middle-earth.
Okay, because I didn't have that yet. I just got it recently, so I finally.
Oh, did you?
it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's fun. You're going to enjoy
No
it.
more will you upstage me on these Florida issues.
Fine. All right. Can I still be the word nerd, though?
Yeah, I don't have Parma Eldelamber on 17.
All right,
so
good.
Can't catch you there.
So they didn't identify it definitively, but they did suggest that it may have been a species of Banksia. Now, they say these grow today in coastal forests of eastern Australia. And I'm going to read from Flora. This is an extremely unusual distribution for a tree of Middle-earth. Nearly all the trees of the legendarium have Eurasian and North American distributions, whereas Banksia, in contrast, is restricted to the southern hemisphere. Their thought on this is perhaps the Ents in their long travels encountered this species far in the south, appreciated its beauty, and brought it to Fangorn Forest.
Okay.
And if they did so, all I can say is hopefully it's not invasive, like kudzu or giant hogweed.
Well, giant hogweed especially, yeah.
Yeah, giant hogweed is terrible. Turn and run. Nothing can stop them.
So they get to the entrance to the dingle and around the hedge to an entrance. I noticed this. They don't arrive at the entrance. They have to go to it. It made me think just ever so briefly of Caras Galadhon and how they have to go around to the southwest there to get into the entrance. And they follow this worn path down a steep, steep slope.
Yep, and the hobbits see that the dingle is very wide and deep, like a bowl.
Mm-hmm. So they get in, and it's, of course, this all grass-clad. There's just these 3 tall silver birches at the bottom, just those, and no other trees. It's all smoother than them. Yeah,
just 3 happy little trees at the bottom.
Little
for Bob Ross fans out there.
Yeah, I would pay money to have you grow your hair like he did.
I would pay money to be
fro.
able to grow my hair like he could.
Well said.
I don't have that hair anymore.
Oh,
I would have to pay good money to get that hair.
You would, yeah, that would be awesome. All right. Well, so they do get down into the dingle, and then what? They start to see other Ents, and that is where I'm going to have you pick up.
This is a super, super cool passage, and I can't
Isn't
wait
it?
to read it.
Oh, yeah.
The Ents were as different from one another as trees from trees. Some as different as one tree is from another of the same name, but quite different growth and history. And some as different as one tree kind from another, as birch from beech, oak from fir. There were a few older Ents, bearded and gnarled like hale but ancient trees, though none looked as ancient as Treebeard. And there were tall, strong Ents, clean-limbed and smooth-skinned like forest trees in their prime. But there were no young Ents, no saplings. Altogether, there were about 24 standing on the wide grassy floor of the dingle, and as many more were marching in. At first, Merry and Pippin were struck chiefly by the variety that they saw, the many shapes and colors, the differences in girth and height and length of leg and arm, and in the number of toes and fingers, anything from 3 to 9. A few seemed more or less related to Treebeard, and reminded them of beech trees or oaks. But there were other kinds. Some recalled the chestnut, brown-skinned Ents with large, splay-fingered hands and short, thick legs. Some recalled the ash, tall, straight gray Ents with many-fingered hands and long legs. Some the fir, the tallest Ents, and others the birch, the rowan, and the linden. But when the Ents all gathered round Treebeard, bowing their heads slightly, murmuring in their slow, musical voices, and looking long and intently at the strangers, then the hobbits saw that they were all of the same kindred, and all had the same eyes. Not all so old or so deep as Treebeard's, but all with the same slow, steady, thoughtful expression, and the same green flicker.
Wow.
Oh, I love that description so much.
I know. I do too.
It's so rich.
It is rich, and it is unexpected.
Yeah.
And the hobbits, really, it's unexpected for them too, right? They
Yeah.
expected creatures like Treebeard, or at least close enough, as the text says, as one hobbit is like another.
Right.
This is so different.
Yeah, very, very different from one another, and in different ways, right? Sometimes they're
Right,
different
right.
the way one oak is different from another oak,
Right.
but sometimes they're as different as a birch and a beech.
Yeah, radically different. You're right.
All kinds of variety here.
Yeah. Some were old, but nothing like Treebeard.
Right.
Some were tall, strong, smooth skin. I mean, there was just a vast variety of tree-like creatures here,
But
no saplings.
no
Yeah,
saplings.
no young ones. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. No Entwives for a long
Right.
time. And there's about 24 in total, right?
So
But
far,
there's
yeah.
more coming in. Yeah.
Right.
So we probably are going to get to around 4 dozen by the time they're all there.
That sounds about right. I think we'll get some more specific numbers as they march. Yeah.
Yeah. But the variety, again.
Oh, I know. It just keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Height, girth, the shape, the color, the length of the limbs, the number of toes and fingers, everything's different.
I love the number of toes and fingers. The fact
I know.
that varies. from
Making
end to
gloves
end.
and shoes for this race would be difficult.
And, when an Enting is born, what do they say? Does he have 10 fingers and 10 toes? Are they looking for 10 fingers and 10 toes? I mean,
Do they care? I mean, no.
Do they care? Right. Well, at least he's got 10 fingers and 10 toes.
Who cares? I had 12.
Right, exactly. But again, they seem in large part to look like different kinds of trees. So we see
Yeah.
that some are like beeches or like oaks, and those are the ones that are more like Treebeard. So we know that Treebeard is something like a beech or an oak.
True. And then we get others like the chestnut or the ash, even the fir or the birch, the rowan, the linden. I'm still waiting for the larch.
As well you should.
Larch. Yeah, I really would like a large Ent, please.
And now a word about the chestnut. Similar to an earlier passage, which was in chapter 2 of book 3, the chestnut-like Ents are said to have these large splay-fingered hands. And if you think back to chapter 2, we had this description of a chestnut with long splayed fingers. So almost the same description there. Judd and Judd suggest that Tolkien was thinking of the horse chestnut here, not true chestnuts. I think I talked about that in that episode a few weeks ago, but here again, it's the same thing. That long splayed fingers image is more
the horse
akin
chestnut.
to horse chestnuts than true chestnuts.
Either way, though, I know there's one Christmas song the Ents don't sing. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Yeah. Probably
not gonna do that
probably
one.
not a favorite of theirs. I'm not sure that Ents are big on Christmas anyway. What with the chopping
trees?
down of a tree.
Yeah, I don't think they're singing O Tenenbaum either.
No. The cutting down of a tree and imprisoning it.
Oh, Christmas tree, we will avenge thee soon.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're big on that. Yule logs, no, sorry, not happening.
It's not happening. That is hilarious. And yeah, good point.
But despite all the variety, there's this similarity, right? They all had the same eyes. They all had that same thoughtful expression and that same green flicker that Treebeard does.
What a sight that is.
It speaks to a sameness. There's an interesting kind of fellowship here in that they have a similar something inside is the same, even though they're different on the outside.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I do too. I like that a lot. And then they start to speak, and that is where I'm going to pick up.
All right.
As soon as the whole company was assembled, standing in a wide circle round Treebeard, a curious and unintelligible conversation began. One which you'll be glad to hear I'm not going to try to make up.
Oh, come on.
Most of my conversations are curious and unintelligible, but yeah. The Ents began to murmur slowly. First one joined and then another, until they were all chanting together in a long rising and falling rhythm, now louder on one side of the ring, now dying away there and rising to a great boom on the other side. Though he could not catch or understand any of the words, he supposed the language was Entish, Pippin found the sound very pleasant to listen to at first, but gradually his attention wavered. After a long time, and the chant showed no signs of slackening, he found himself wondering, since Entish was such an unhasty language, whether they had yet got further than good morning, and if Treebeard was to call the roll, how many days it would take to sing all their names. I wonder what the Entish is for yes or no, he thought. He yawned. Treebeard was immediately aware of him.
Hi, my Pippin,
he said, and the other Ents all stopped their chant.
You are a hasty folk, I was forgetting. And anyway, it is wearisome listening to a speech you do not understand. You may get down now. I have told your names to the Entmoot. They have seen you, and they have agreed that you are not orcs, and that a new line shall be put in the old lists. We have got no further yet, but that is quick work for an Entmoot.
Next time it takes me 10 times longer to do something than it should, I'll say, oh, that's quick work for an Entmoot.
That's a good one. I like that.
I like it. Yeah.
We should start using that every time we go off on a digression that's a little bit longer than we meant to.
Still quick work.
Well,
for
we went for a long time there, but that was still quick work for Entmoot.
There you go. We're adding a new inside joke to the show today. I like it.
That's going to be our new tagline. The Prancing Pony Podcast. Quick work for an Entmoot.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, man. So, as soon as they're assembled, this curious and unintelligible conversation begins.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're an Ent, which hopefully it's very intelligible then. But
can you imagine if it's unintelligible to them? That would be
to the
hilarious.
Ents, what are you saying, Treebeard? Would
Yeah.
you please restate your point?
They're just speaking gibberish to each other.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. No, I don't.
This would not be a scene in the movie that's subtitled because
Totally,
you're not supposed to know what they're saying.
No,
You're not
right.
supposed to have any idea.
Why aren't the subtitles on? No, they are. They're just not in this scene.
Yeah.
Subtitles not appearing in this film. The hobbits are clearly in this epistemic regime, aren't they? You know, we've talked about that before, something that Drought's talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. Yeah. You're
This
right.
is the hobbits really being stuck in the deepest
They
part
are
of the epistemic
totally stuck in the
regime.
deepest part. They are completely not in the know here.
No. Not only do they not know what's being talked about, they don't know what's being said.
Right.
So it's really an ultimate lack of knowledge. Yeah.
They don't even render any of this as sounds.
No.
You know, we don't even get a hum hum burarum from this. It's just
No, you're right. You get
sorry.
this weird chanting that
We're
changes
not even
in
gonna
volumes
try.
and- no.
We're not even going to try to relay this in the text.
There are no words in English. Yeah.
But eventually you can almost hear as out of this kind of cacophony, at least to the hobbits, suddenly this murmuring becomes this chant, right? With this
Right.
varying rhythm. And so there is some sort of regularity that they're settling into.
It's like the wave goes, back and forth across the bowl. Very slow.
And I'm imagining
waves.
all these branches going up.
Whoa.
Yep. It's kind of bouncing back and forth, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Across the
It's
room.
almost like a debate or a discussion, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we find out later what they're talking about. Okay, yeah, it looks like they're not orcs.
Right.
Maybe, So then we get Pippin's internal thoughts, which are great. I love it. Have they even said good morning yet?
Right.
If they
yeah.
take the role, how long is that going to take, right?
Man,
Love
especially
that.
if they use each other's real names.
Oh my goodness, days. Yeah.
And then Pippin yawns. And Treebeard, I love this. He remembers that they're there, and he has this little aside, stops to talk to Pippin, and the Ents stop chanting when he talks to them.
Yeah. I gotta wonder though, did Pippin just sort of like yawn under his breath? Was it a little
Like
Or was it
an
like-
intentional, like a really exaggerated yawn. to
Right,
get Treebeard's
exactly.
attention.
Really
I would
trying
not
to
put
get
it
his
past
attention.
him. Yeah.
Not past Pippin. You're absolutely right. So Treebeard explains what's happened. It's not much, but like we said, it is quick work for an Entmoot. I told them your names, and they've agreed you're not orcs.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Love that. But hey, look, they're going to put in a new line in the old list, so that's good.
Yeah, that is nice.
3 cheers for poetry by committee, I guess.
Oh, wow. That's, not too many committees put together poetry. True.
No. But then, this is not in the passage you just read, but he says, look,
Right.
you guys are bored. You can go have a little stroll around the dingle if you like.
Here's my iPad. Yeah.
And then the ominous, there are still some words to speak before the moot really begins comment, which
Yeah,
does not fill anyone with a lot of confidence
No.
that they're going to have lunch today.
No. Or next week, for that matter.
We're on next
Yeah.
week, exactly.
Yeah.
But the hobbits bow.
Which amuses the Ents to no end, by the way. I love
Mhm.
that. As we talked about, in a recent bag question about Ents bowing.
The Ents are not very flexible, right? And so they
Well,
think
no.
it's kind of weird when they're trees. Of course they're not flexible.
They're tree-like, as we talked about, yeah.
Yeah. I'm probably reading way too much into this, but they're at least being metaphorically flexible here by admitting they're not orcs
Ooh,
and letting
flexible.
them into the list.
Interesting. Fair enough. Okay, yeah, I think you are diving too far, yeah.
Probably, yeah. But I think I wanna
Just a
put it
bit
out there
outside, ball 4. He's walked 3 straight batters to load the bases.
Hey, I'm putting it out there anyway. If somebody's going to read too much into something, you know it's going to be me.
That's true. That is always true. Speaking of reading, though, and don't read too much into this, why don't you take the next passage for us? When Merry and Pippin discuss geography.
All right. Long tree-clad slopes rose from the lip of the dingle, and away beyond them, above the fir trees of the furthest ridge, there rose, sharp and white, the peak of a high mountain. Southwards to their left, they could see the forest falling away down into the gray distance. There, far away, there was a pale green glimmer that Merry guessed to be a glimpse of the plains of Rohan. "I wonder where Isengard is," said Pippin. "I don't know quite where we are," said Merry, "but that peak is probably Methedras, and as far as I can remember, the ring of Isengard lies in a fork or deep cleft at the end of the mountains. It is probably down behind this great ridge. There seems to be a smoke or haze over there left of the peak, don't you think?" "What is Isengard like?" said Pippin. "I wonder what Ents can do about it anyway." "So do I," said Merry. "Isengard is a sort of ring of rocks or hills, I think, with a flat space inside and an island or pillar of rock in the middle, called Orthanc. Saruman has a tower on it. There is a gate, perhaps more than one, in the encircling wall, and I believe there is a stream running through it. It comes out of the mountains and flows on across the gap of Rohan."
There we go. So they observed the slopes that run up from the entrance to the dingle, which, as we learn here, faces west.
Mm-hmm. And they see the forest falling away down to their left with a glimmer of what Merry thinks, and I think he's right, to be the plains of Rohan.
Right.
Pippin asks, "Where's Isengard?" Because, of course, he was not looking at maps in Rivendell.
He was doing other things, what we don't know, but he wasn't looking at maps. So Merry gives him a little geography lesson about the location of Isengard. It's a really nice little, exposition here in the story in case you weren't paying attention earlier. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then after we find out a little bit about the location, Pippin asks, well, what is Isengard like? That's a good question.
Right. And Merry gives a really good description of it here. I mean, he describes, this ring of rocks or hills with a flat space inside and the pillar of Orthanc in the middle.
Mm-hmm. I found that interesting. He says, and an island or pillar of rock in the middle called Orthanc. Saruman has a tower on it. Makes you almost think that there is a island or pillar of rock called Orthanc, and then there's the tower of Orthanc on top of that. It's like the tower is separate from the pillar, but that doesn't make any sense.
Well, it could just be that Merry is not all that clear.
Well,
right?
that's true. It is Merry. I mean,
he's
a step up from Pippin, but he's still Merry.
I mean, he is the studious one, but I mean, he's just going on hearsay, right? He hasn't actually seen it yet. So I would say if there's anything in his description that doesn't jibe with what you know from other
everything
sources,
else.
Yeah, it's probably, he's just wrong.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's right about some things. I mean, he knows there's a gate in the encircling wall. He knows about the stream that comes from the mountains. So,
and where it even goes. Yeah.
Right. And so he's definitely up on his geography a bit. Just, he hasn't seen it yet.
No, not yet. Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm going to pick up there. That felt weird to kind of chop this reading up into different sections and right in the middle of Merry's conversation. But here we were talking about geography, and now they're going to talk about the Ents.
Yeah.
It does not seem the sort of place for Ents to tackle, but I have an odd feeling about these Ents. Somehow I don't think they are quite as safe and, funny as they seem. They seem slow, queer, and patient, almost sad. And yet I believe they could be roused. If that happened, I would rather not be on the other side. Yes, said Pippin, I know what you mean. There might be all the difference between an old cow sitting and thoughtfully chewing and a bull charging, and the change might come suddenly. I wonder if Treebeard will rouse them. I am sure he means to try, but they don't like being roused. Treebeard got roused himself last night and then bottled it up again.
Boy, you're absolutely right. Even though it's in the middle of a paragraph for Merry, he does suddenly shift from talking about geography to talking about Ent nature and what's going to happen. It was actually a really good place to break it.
Well, thank you, sir. I was trying to figure out how to do that, and that was like the only spot I could find.
It actually worked perfectly well. I mean,
Yeah.
So Mary observes, as you read, that it doesn't seem like the kind of place the Ents would go after. I guess
Right.
that means because it's a stony place. Maybe
I guess.
the assumption is that wood doesn't beat stone in the
Yeah, they
paper,
don't know
scissors,
yet, but
rock
yeah.
game of Middle Earth.
Paper, scissors, rock. Yeah, you're right.
But then he does immediately acknowledge how surprising the Ents are, suggesting that
true.
maybe there's something there that they don't
Maybe.
really show all that often.
Yeah, they're not quite as safe as they seem. That kind of makes me think a little bit of Lewis, and his deal about, is Aslan safe? Safe? No, he's good, but he's not safe. In a way, the Ents are sort of the same way. They're good from their perspective, but they're not safe. And interestingly, he describes them as slow, sort of strange or queer, patient, melancholy, really. But boy, they are, and he knows this, they are a danger if they're roused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pippin picks up on this right away, too. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's the difference between the old cow chewing and the charging bull. This is a powerful, powerful metaphor.
It is.
I mean, and you can really see that, don't assume that just because they're hanging out in the forest, being contemplative, that they're not
Right.
capable of action, because man, they are capable of action if they're aroused.
Very capable, as we'll see.
And
yeah.
and it's going to happen, just like that.
Yeah, it's
gonna
like a
happen
switch.
Suddenly. Yeah, exactly. A switch will be flipped, and suddenly, man, they're just
watch
gonna be
out,
unleashed.
Saruman. Yeah.
Watch out, Saruman, indeed.
Yeah.
And so, okay, going back to the text, I mean, Pippin wonders whether Treebeard is going to succeed in rousing them.
Right. I mean, he
Certainly
knows they're going
seems
to.
like
He's going to
trying
try.
to, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But then he remembers what happened last night. Right. Treebeard got really roused, really riled up, ready to go, and then immediately shut it down.
Mm-hmm. They don't like being roused.
No,
They do
don't.
not like it. What do you think this says about them?
That they are very set in their ways. And, we talked about this a little before. Their neutrality is, on its face, it's fine, right? We talked about this. Yeah, they're not worried about what's happening half a world away if it doesn't affect them. And you can criticize them for that or not. But clearly related to that is the fact that they don't want to be involved if they don't have to be involved.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a fear. They don't seem like they're fearful. Maybe it's just reclusiveness and wanting things to stay the same.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think it's wanting things to stay the same, because when I think about my answer to that question, why don't they like being roused? I think it's just because they just want to keep things simple, I think.
Yeah.
This is our routine. This is what we do. We watch the trees. We protect the forest, but that usually just means, walking around protecting the forest, maybe stomping an orc or two that strays in here.
Right.
Protecting the forest does not usually mean going somewhere else and
Right. Going on the offensive and
going
and
on the
taking
offensive.
action.
Exactly. That's perfect wording for it. That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Well, we go back even to the beginning of the episode when we talked about Ents and Entwives. I'm not saying that Entwives would have done this, but they were more action oriented. And the Ents have
Absolutely.
always been more contemplative, more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think their normal way of protecting the forest just requires them to be on the defensive. They just patrol and respond when they need to, but they don't have to go beyond their borders, and they don't have to go on the offensive, as you said. I think that's exactly it. I think this is pushing them outside their comfort zone. And yet, as we're going to see, they are going to realize that this is necessary. They are going to have to go on the offensive. That's the only way to protect the forest.
Right.
Is to
we'll
go
finally see that.
beyond. Yeah.
And we'll find that out next week. But for now, we've got one more reading from you about the hobbits finding their way back to the Entmoot.
All right. The hobbits turned back. The voices of the Ents were still rising and falling in their conclave. The sun had now risen high enough to look over the high hedge. It gleamed on the tops of the birches and lit the northward side of the dingle with a cool yellow light. There they saw a little glittering fountain. They walked along the rim of the great bowl at the feet of the evergreens. It was pleasant to feel cool grass about their toes again and not to be in a hurry. And then they climbed down to the gushing water. They drank a little, a clean, cold, sharp draught, and sat down on a mossy stone, watching the patches of sun on the grass and the shadows of the sailing clouds passing over the floor of the dingle. The murmur of the Ents went on. It seemed a very strange and remote place, outside their world and far from everything that had ever happened to them. A great longing came over them for the faces and voices of their companions, especially for Frodo and Sam, and for Strider.
Yeah, I imagine. So distant, so far away from everything, and so far out of their experience. This is not like anything they could have ever imagined. It's not just that they're far away. I mean, they were far away when they got to Parth Galen, but...
Right. It's just an alien place. It's not...
Yeah, alien. That's a good way of putting it.
Not a place for hobbits. It's not a place for the children of Iluvatar, I'd argue.
No, really.
This is an Entish place.
Yeah.
And they're going to feel uncomfortable. It's not a bad uncomfortable.
No.
But it's sort of an outside their comfort zone.
You don't belong here uncomfortable, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning of that passage, right? This we see that they come back to the dingle, and then they hear the Ent voices still rising and falling as they continue the Entmoot.
Right. And the sun is now looking over the hedge. Now, remember, they needed to be here by noon, so this must be a few hours on by this time.
The afternoon has passed, right?
Yeah. So on the northward side of the dingle, they see this cool yellow light. They see this little fountain. They see these evergreens, and they feel the grass at their toes.
Oh, I love that.
This just kind of makes them feel hobbitish again, doesn't it? It feels
like when they first got down to the plains of Rohan, remember?
Yes,
and they
exactly,
felt connected to the earth, seeing the grass like that.
Yep.
And then the water, right? They get the water and they drink a little bit. It's clean, it's cold, it's sharp, but there's nothing here describing it to be like the Ent draft, right? This isn't...
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, or even like the Ent wash, where clearly is the source of the Ent draft, but
right.
Nothing like that here.
Yeah, this is just good water.
Yeah.
And as they're hanging out, they hear the murmur of the Ents go on. And again, it's, as we talked about, this very strange and remote kind of alien sensation that they have. And this feeling of not belonging reminds them of their friends. It gives them this pining.
Oh, no, you did not. Wow.
Well, you
know. That was brilliant and terrible. And
Thank you, I think. Well, we hadn't had too many tree puns this episode yet, so I figured I'd branch out and try one.
That's true. We intended to leave them alone.
Yes, we do. But yeah, no, they truly, they are longing for their friends, especially Frodo and Sam and Strider.
Yeah.
And this is such a great fellowship moment. It
really is.
They're feeling kind of alone, not in a sad way, but they're just feeling like, man, it's just us.
Yeah. Yeah. In a place where, nobody's going to find us here.
Right.
This is not a place that people go, because it's not a place for people.
It is not a place for people at all.
Right. Well, it turns out that the murmur of the Ents that's going on, you know what it really is?
What?
It's them trying to figure out what question to submit to Bartleman's bag.
Oh.
It is. Yeah.
Nicely done. I like that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Even after we have answered whatever question they submit, the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony.
That's right. Our awesome and not quite as loquacious as the Ents listener community keeps the conversation going, but usually proceeding pretty quickly past the, hey, you're not orcs thing.
Well, yeah.
They keep that conversation going in all of our social media spaces. At our common room on Facebook, you're going to find comments, questions, corrections, and more on every episode, as well as updates from us throughout the week. Just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast on Facebook.
Now, be sure to follow that page, but also join the group we've recently created. The page lets us keep you up to date on the latest PPP happenings, like our digital moot later this year. And the group gives you a great chance to discuss Tolkien with your fellow listeners. It has become incredibly active over the last few weeks, and it's a great place to spend some time. Of course, we also have some really great discussions going on over at Reddit. You can find us there at r/prancingponypod.
That's right. And also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, both with the handle @prancingponypod. And if you're enjoying the show, please share us, and please consider giving us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Please do. And if you want exclusive content like postscripts, full bonus episodes, live Discord events with Sean and me, or episodes without the digital ads, then check out patreon.com/prancingponypod, where you can support the show by joining the fellowship of the podcast. Now, let's go ahead and see what messages Bartleman has brought us. Sean, what do we have?
All right. Well, first up, Daniel M. in Evansville, Indiana, writes in to share some of his thoughts on Ents. He says, I've been reading through The Lord of the Rings again, and I'm at the part in The Two Towers where Treebeard, Merry, and Pippin have set out from Wellinghall to journey to Entmoot. Well, what a coincidence. We're
Yeah.
there too.
Surprise, surprise.
Almost like we planned that. So Daniel said, this passage jumped out at me. Soon Treebeard turned a little away from the hills and plunged into deep groves, where the trees were larger, taller, and thicker than any that the hobbits had ever seen before. Daniel says, I immediately remembered that these hobbits have seen the Malorn trees of Lothlorien. Very similar to something we were talking about a little while ago.
Yeah. Again, almost like we planned it.
Right, I know. Daniel says not only are the trees in this part of Fangorn bigger, they are noticeably bigger. These trees must be the size of skyscrapers.
Yeah.
If any of these trees were Huorns that traveled to Helm's Deep, imagine how terrifying that would be to see a tree skyscraper moving toward you.
Or dozens of them, yes.
Yeah. Oh, and it brought about 1,000 of his friends.
Yeah.
Daniel says.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Picturing this as possibly what the orcs at Helm's Deep saw, it's amazing that they still chose to try their luck in the trees rather than face the pursuing heroes.
That is a good point.
It's all just a wonderful visual, and I wanted to share.
Well, we're
That's
glad
awesome,
you did,
Daniel.
Daniel.
Thank you.
Yeah. We are glad you shared that with us, Daniel. It's a very powerful visual, and it puts me in mind of what I mentioned earlier, that these humongous trees really sound like they might be analogous in size to the giant sequoias. Now, they could be just trees and not animate trees like the Huorns.
Right.
I don't know, Sean, are all trees in Fangorn Huorns and able to be herded by the Ents?
I don't believe that all of them are, no. I think only a subset of the trees are actually Huorns.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Daniel says, I think it's questionable whether these tallest trees would have been Huorns or not. I kind of hope some of them are.
I hope
'cause
so.
love
That'd be
that image.
awesome. How cool is that, right? Giant sequoias marching their way to Helm's Deep.
Yeah. But I don't know. Let's read from the text a little bit to see what we
Sure.
can find out about them.
Yeah.
First, I'll read from near the end of the chapter, Helm's Deep. So King Theoden rode from Helm's Gate and clove his path to the great dyke. There the company halted. Light grew bright about them. Shafts of the sun flared above the eastern hills and glimmered on their spears. But they sat silent on their horses, and they gazed down upon the deeping coombe. The land had changed. Where before the green dale had lain, its grassy slopes lapping the ever-mounting hills, there now a forest loomed. Great trees, bare and silent, stood, rank on rank, with tangled bough and hoary head. Their twisted roots were buried in the long green grass. Darkness was under them. Between the dike and the eaves of that nameless wood only 2 open furlongs lay. There now cowered the proud hosts of Saruman, in terror of the king and in terror of the trees.
Wow. Yeah, that's not a big gap.
man.
That's about, what did we find out? A furlong is like 1/8 of a mile, so that's about 1/4 of a mile.
Yeah,
It's not very far.
not very far at all.
Wow,
Man,
terrifying.
that's awesome.
Well, later, after Erkenbrand and Gandalf arrived to save the day. That's right. Erkenbrand, sir, not appearing in this film.
That's right.
Yeah. The orcs fled into the trees, and the last line of the chapter ominously reports, "From that shadow, none ever came again." That's, yeah.
Yeah.
But we visit this dark wood again in the next chapter, The Road to Isengard. Eomer declares Gandalf to be mighty in wizardry because of the trees, but Gandalf's not having any of it. He says, "It is a thing beyond the counsel of the wise. Better than my design, and better even than my hope, the event has proved." "Then, if not yours, whose is the wizardry?" said Theoden. "Not Saruman's, that is plain. Is there some mightier sage of whom we have yet to learn?" "It is not wizardry, but a power far older," said Gandalf. "A power that walked the earth, ere elf sang or hammer rang. Ere iron was found, a tree was hewn, when young was mountain under moon. Ere ring was made or wrought was woe, it walked the forests long ago."
Wow.
Yeah.
And we're going to see even more of these woods up close when we get there.
Oh, we will. Though not as up close as the orcs will.
No. They'll see the inside of them as they're eaten, I'm sure.
No.
Now, admittedly, nothing is said about trees as big as the ones we're talking about here. So while silence on the topic isn't exactly proof, maybe there's reason to believe that these really huge trees that we saw here aren't part of the Ent Army or the Huorn Reserve.
The Huorn Reserve. I love that.
But I love the idea that they would be, and man,
that'd
I
be
hope
fun.
there's a few of those giants in there.
That would be great.
Well, Alan, do we have time for one more?
We do indeed, Sean. Ryan F. in Port Angeles, Washington, has some thoughts on Goldberry and wants our input. He says, I just listened to your final discussion on Tom Bombadil tonight. I expected more discussion of what Goldberry is taxonomically, but I have my own theory, and it goes like this. Goldberry and other river daughters are to rivers as Ents are to forests, and as eagles are to air. Now, admittedly, Goldberry doesn't need to be forced into any particular taxonomy and could be allowed to just exist. But I think now might be a good time to revisit the difference between the children of Iluvatar, both original and adopted, the dwarves, and other sentient but non-children beings. In other words, Ents and eagles. And I'm very curious what you guys think of my idea. Well, if there is anybody to speculate on, it's Goldberry, because there's just a smidge more than flat out nothing on Goldberry anywhere.
Yeah.
So it really is open territory. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I guess I'd start by just defending our silence on Goldberry.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan says he expected more discussion on what Goldberry is. It would have been nice, but there's just nothing to go on.
I mean, it's one thing to not have anything to hang your hat on. It's another thing to not even have a wall to put the hat hook on.
Right, exactly.
There
was literally nothing. I mean,
nothing.
It's a fair point, and it's worth revisiting. So thank you, Ryan, for keeping us honest. I like Ryan's idea. I do have to say, though, if Goldberry is, say, a shepherd of the river, analogous to Ents, let's say river daughters are like some sort of nymph or, again, shepherd, if we use the analogy of the Ents of the river. If that's what Goldberry is, one could argue she's not really doing her job because she's shacked up with Tom,
Yeah, she's not actually out herding a river,
She's hanging out, she's cooking, she's singing songs with Tom all day. I mean, that's fine. I'm glad she's
doing
there.
her laundry by making it rain, which is pretty cool. There's a power.
Exactly. That is a super cool power. And so, she does seem to be a kind of personification of the water cycle, right? So there's definitely a nature spirit thing there.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I see her protecting the river the way the Ents protect the forest. I think, again, if she has, I think she's kind of lost her way a little bit. And I don't want to think that about Goldberry. I want to think that she's more of a personification and less of a shepherd.
I'm looking at it from the other direction. He says Goldberry and other river daughters. Of course, that is her name. She is a river daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think of the Ents as being forest sons. I don't think of them as being descended from the woods.
Yeah, I agree.
Because specifically we're given a cause for them, an origin story, if you will. And so they're protectors of the woods. They came into existence for that purpose. I don't think Goldberry came into existence for the purpose of protecting the river.
I agree. I think she came out of the river. She is the river daughter. Whereas Ents were created separately. They were created independently.
To lead and protect the forest.
And to lead the forest. Exactly.
And I think the other reason for that is that the rivers don't need protecting because Ulmo, the spirit of the waters, the rivers themselves are mighty powerful. I don't think they need the protection the way the forests need protection.
But you could argue that Yvonne has got the same juice with the forests. I mean...
Well, that's true, but remember, we actually learned that the spirit of Ulmo runs through the waters of Middle-earth. I don't think
that's a good point.
See anything like that with any of the other Valar in terms of their direct connection and kind of remaining in Middle-earth in some sort of spiritual fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I draw the same conclusion, but it's an interesting point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. And I don't really know where to draw that with eagles and air. I mean, what is there to protect with air?
Yeah, I think eagles do more protecting of people on the ground than they do. Like, they don't really seem to protect well, I guess they do. I mean,
they would. I think if...
Well, let's say when the winged steeds of the Nazgul.
That's true. The eagles are coming, right, and then they attack the winged steeds. It's true. That's fair.
Going back to Goldberry, I did a little thought experiment. I imagine if Lotho and Sharky start polluting the river in the Shire, and their pollution, their toxic waste from the mill is just like spreading out into the rivers and it gets into the Withywindle. I don't see Goldberry coming up and fighting them by flooding the mill or something. Like, I don't see her doing the Ent thing to go fight against somebody who's polluting the river.
I think you might be right. But maybe that's because, like you said, she sort of lost her way. I mean,
maybe so.
Because that doesn't deny the fact, or it doesn't deny the possibility that was her intention.
That was her intended nature.
That's the purpose.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But since we don't have any other river daughters to compare her to.
True. Yeah. And we don't actually see it happen, so we have no evidence in the text for what she would do in that situation.
Right.
So,
That's all hypothetical. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting idea, Ryan. I don't dislike it.
I like the idea. I mean, we talked about her being like a water nymph or something like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea that she's that kind of spirit of the river. But yeah, I see her as more of a personification of water than a protector of water.
Yeah, that's a fair way of putting it. Personification rather than a protector. I think so too.
But I like it, Ryan. I think it's a cool speculation.
It's always a fun thing to talk about, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so here's the discussion. Even if we don't end up agreeing with the taxonomy theory that you've come up with, we at least now have talked about it, which we didn't do in that episode.
So hopefully we have in some way made amends.
I hope so. Well, folks, that wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But please be sure to join us again next week when we meet a very hasty Ent.
Oh, sure. Interrupt an old Ent once, and you're slapped with
Once.
a hasty label for the rest of time.
That's about right.
I interrupt one Ent.
One.
Well, folks, we want to take a moment to thank some really important people. That's our patrons at the Cure Dance Contribution tier. They are DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, Ella in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Josh in Oklahoma, Carlos in California, Brian from the UK, Cameron in Nevada, and Ned from Connecticut. Folks, thank you all so much for your support.
Seriously, thank you very much. And we also want to thank the team that helps make the show better. That includes our research assistants, Marilyn R. Paquila, Thomas Karat, and Julia Matthews, along with our barlowman, Becca Davis, producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and website guru Phil Dean.
This show truly would not be what it is without our supporters and our teammates. So thank you all.
Absolutely.
Now, be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, how you react to being roused. Very important. Don't add a letter to that. To Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com. I could hear you going there, Sean.
Yep, you heard my chuckle,
I did.
my little snicker. Well, moving past that, Barlaman's a lot more reliable these days, but we do get a lot of mail. So we'll get to you as soon as we can, and your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.